Invalid usernames have always been interesting and important to me. They're the reason I got into the account community, which is the reason I started making Minecraft Uncovered videos, which is the reason my channel has grown 20 times bigger in the last year. Thank you for that, by the way, that's pretty insane growth. But for a lot of that time, there wasn't actually a lot going on in terms of the invalid account scene. New names hadn't been publicized for nearly a year, none of the accounts were ever brought into the community, and a lot of names ended up getting locked, name changed, or purged. So for over a year, I was working with pretty old stories since there just wasn't anything new to talk about. But that all changed at the turn of the year. At the very end of 2020, Din-X was leaked to the public, which had been kept private for a long time. Shortly afterwards, a new player in the invalid game, Desmond, found both Darthwar and Carl, two previous invalids that hadn't been known. And over the next 3 months, he would find a current invalid by the name of Victor.Svensson, Mickey-PL was publicized, Football-Flow was discovered and cracked, and Crazy Biting Turtle was name changed by the owner. For the invalid community, that was an insane amount of progress, more than we had seen in several years. But if only we knew what was to come. Over the course of another 3 months, starting in March of 2020, the invalid community has seen likely the fastest and most impressive growth it ever has, finding tons of invalid usernames, both new and old. So in today's episode of Minecraft Uncovered, we're going to be talking about the golden age of Minecraft invalids. The way this wave of discoveries started is actually with simultaneously the least important but one of the most interesting finds, at least to me. It's the only surviving record of invalid Unicode characters on Mojang's API, in the form of a previous name on the account Emmer Karaman, the actual invalid name being XEmmerWarrior with a short dotless I instead of the normal letter. This was found by the one and only Desmond, who was mentioned in the intro. Emmer was actually made invalid outside of the May 2020 exploit, which means it's one of only 2 known accounts that managed to do so. The other one being Unexpected Hit, which was the first Unicode invalid ever found, unfortunately losing its invalid name during the most recent invalid purge. Interestingly, Emmer's current name is the name of a Turkish football player, and so was one of Unexpected Hit's previous names. Maybe they were friends or something, I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Nothing happened for nearly 3 weeks until March 24th, when a brand new current invalid, ThatCreepy Neighbor, was discovered and discussed privately by the boys over at the 88 GitHub during their UUID collection project, which at the time consisted of Swede, Tanpug, Caustic, and Jamie. It would be another 2 days before the account's existence was revealed to the public. Reason being, they managed to acquire the account in that time frame, now making it the only invalid length name in the community after the past losses of Michael.Salvaggio and Crazy Biting Turtle. On the same day, there was more big news about invalids, though it was somewhat overshadowed by Neighbor. Shadow an invalid we had known about for years, was finally acquired by Pocket, making it the first invalid he ever owned, though not the last, and we'll get to that in a moment. It was quite a surprise to hear that he actually managed to get it. Years and years in the past, players attempted to brute force their way into Shadow, but all attempts ended in failure. But it turns out, they didn't fail because of the account having good security. No, it was much more stupid than that. The original group that tried to crack Shadow used proxies, or multiple IP addresses, to make their cracking program run a lot faster and prevent themselves from getting IP banned. But they used cheap, low-quality proxies to do so, and when the cracking program tried the actual real password to the account, it didn't work because the request was sent on a broken proxy. They either didn't realize this or didn't care though, and everyone just sort of assumed the account was uncrackable, leaving it to sit undisturbed for years. Pocket was the first person with enough skill and resources to properly try to crack the account, and he got it first try. The account has since been sold to an unknown buyer for an undisclosed price, but it does seem to be secure and in hopefully good hands. On to April, and April was pretty wild. I mean, really all of 2021 has been pretty wild, but April has been the most active month by far for any one part of the invalid scene. And it all began on April 6th with a brand new previous invalid. Now, remember how I said Emmer Karaman was one of the most interesting discoveries? This is the most interesting discovery. And on top of that, it's probably one of, if not the most important. Again, this name was discovered by Desmond, but it's a lot crazier than the last, so bear with me as I walk you through the username of the most interesting account I've ever seen. Are you ready? RTB36 !/ Patriots fan $! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! period L, the lone letter in a sea of chaos, right chevron P. This is the most invalid name that we have ever seen, with 9 unique invalid characters and an invalid length. Frankly, I'm convinced that this username was the result of a man having a very well-timed stroke at his keyboard, who just so happened to make his account while the username system was broken. And not only did he have a stroke, so did Mojang, because attempting to look up this username on the Minecraft API or NameMC resulted in an error. In fact, the only API it could be properly viewed on was Ashcon app, though you could also view the profile on MC Skin History and View MC. Notice how I said you could view it. You'll see what that means in a bit. But for now, let's move on to our next account, which I can't actually talk about. The current owner doesn't want any of his accounts talked about in a public YouTube video, which is fair I suppose, but it would be stupid for me not to mention them at all. So I'll just say there's a .invalid and a .invalid that were recently discovered and acquired. If you know, you know. If you don't, I'm sure someone in the community would be happy to inform you, but I can't really do that here. So on to the next invalid, which is somehow one of multiple new invalid accounts with Niklas in the name. This one is niklas-luca, discovered, publicized, and acquired by Pocket. I can't say too much about this account either, but an interesting piece of trivia you might like to know is that the original password to the account was 1964. It just goes to show how poor the security is on some of these accounts. The next day brought yet another new invalid account, once again founded by the 88 GitHub gang during their UUID collection project. This one was a previous invalid though, unfortunately, named TechnoJ#, and because of that, nobody really tried to gain access to the account. After Techno's discovery, 10 days would pass until the next and final account was discovered. The account's name was UltraMegaChicken123, which is the longest username that's ever been in the account community. And of course, if it's in the account community, that means somebody managed to acquire it. In this case, that was Pocket, who also discovered the account and publicized it 3 days later. He waited because, in his own words, he was too lazy to change the password. Nice. Although April was the craziest month on the invalid history timeline, May would probably come in second place. And the best part about it is that we don't have to censor anything. So let's start from the beginning, which is surprisingly late in the month on May 12th. That was the day that the 88 GitHub, Jamie now removed, found yet another previous invalid while working on their UUID project. This one was a .invalid by the name of max.lehippie, and we know absolutely nothing else about it, so let's move on to the confusingly second Niklas invalid featured in this video. This one was Niklas Pettersson, a 17-character length invalid that was discovered and publicized by Desmond on May 15th, but as you can see from the NameMC clip on the screen now, this account has something that no other current or previous invalid has ever had, at least to my knowledge. Niklas has their Badlion client stats displaying on NameMC, and they're actually somewhat active, having activity from just a few days after the name was discovered. So what's going on here? Well, right now there's only theories, but from what I can piece together, the account was likely hacked and sold in an alt shop at some point in the distant history. If the random return to the game in 2020 after years of inactivity isn't enough to prove that, the fact that they went from Swedish to Portuguese in their name history should be helpful as well. We unfortunately haven't been able to gain contact with the current owner though, so we can't confirm any of our ideas. This brings us to May 19th, the most chaotic date in this video, and also probably the saddest, because this day brought the loss of the craziest invalid of all time. The one found just a month earlier, RTB36 !/ Patriots fan $! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! right chevron P. Wow, did I really just get all that first try? But unfortunately, yes, the name was lost. It was already a previous invalid, but the name history of the account actually ended up being completely removed. The reason why? Hold on to your seats and try not to get too angry. There is a member of the account community by the name of Beam, and naturally he wanted to gain access to the account. So would I with a name as crazy as the Patriots fan had. But because he wasn't the rightful owner of the account, he didn't have any of the original information. So when he messaged Mojang support to try to social engineer them into giving him the account, he had to use other methods. One of them was recounting old experiences with the account. Experiences he never actually had, of course, but that might be enough to convince the Mojang staffer that he did indeed own it. And in the process of trying to convince them, he briefly mentioned that the name used to stop him from playing on servers because of the invalid characters, but he fixed it by changing the name. Unfortunately, the Mojang staff member didn't take this as a haha wild story man, here's your account, but more of a that name should have never existed and I'm now going to erase any and all records we have of your name history. Abruptly, people saw the name history disappear from everywhere they could see it with the exception of ViewMC. It took them a bit longer to update, but they too eventually cleared the old name from the name history, much to the dismay of the account community. We did get some positive news later that day though, with a new previous invalid discovered by Desmond, and not only a new invalid, but a record setter. The account's name was Bearcat14, pretty normal until you view it in the Minecraft API and realize that there's actually 246 spaces hidden in the account's username. Yeah, this is the longest known Minecraft username of all time, at 255 characters total. And this is just a theory of course, but that might be the theoretical limit of a Minecraft username. 255 values is the maximum amount of data that can fit in an 8-bit variable, which Minecraft username storage may very well be, meaning that even if the username restrictions are disabled, names will never be able to go past 255 characters, making Bearcat14 the longest Minecraft name to ever exist. Another very special account was also discovered on this day, but it isn't an invalid. I'll be saving it for my next Cape video, so stay tuned. To cap it off, we have two more accounts acquired by the boy Pocket, being Perry.Ben on May 30th and Mr.Dennis on June 1st. Perry was cracked with a very uncommon password in Pocket's words, and Mr.Dennis is another case of an invalid that was ran years ago on bad proxies and was left to rot until Pocket tried again, finally securing one of only two Mr. Invalids that had yet to be cracked. The last one left is Mr.Boo, which is the best one in my opinion. Will it survive the test of time? Will it survive the test of people trying to brute force the password? Heck, will it even survive the test of migration? We will have to see.
You thought it was the end of the video, didn't you? Well, you were wrong, because the video isn't over, and we actually have a few more accounts to talk about. Because on June 24th, nearly a month after discoveries had started to slow down, two brand new invalids were released to the public. Both of these were discovered and publicized by the 88 GitHub team once again. And not only did they manage to find two new invalids, they even gained access to one. That one was Wonka-96, an account that appears to have been cached on NameMC on the 11th, about 2 weeks before it became publicly known. But along with it, they also found Shokobrachin, which is now one of my favorite invalids of all time. The accent on it is just super clean, what can I say? Shokobrachin has been known about for months now, but only recently publicized. And if you're wondering what that German word means, it translates to chocolate bun in English. Considering Willy Wonka is also German, maybe you'll be seeing some Shokobrachin in Wonka's chocolate factory sometime soon. Who knows? God, that joke was terrible. That's the end of this invalid wave thus far, but I don't think it's over just yet. Not a month has gone by without another new discovery, and we're always going to find more. But for now, the community is pretty comfortable in the golden age of invalids.
Hope you all enjoyed the video. I've had the idea for a while, but I scrapped it temporarily because I didn't want to leave out the two invalids in here that I had to censor. I still think it sucks that I couldn't talk about them as much as I'd like to, but hey, gotta respect the owner's privacy, of course. And yeah, that's really all I've got to say, so thanks for watching and have a good one. Peace.